Good afternoon, everyone. How are you all doing? How has the day been so far? Good, good, good. So welcome everyone to the second half of the day. I am Lizette Garcia. I am the Chief Research Officer here at HACER. I'm excited to be here with you today. And before we kick off our afternoon sessions, I wanted to take a moment to thank Microsoft for their support as co-host sponsor of the executive programs this year. You know, programs like this would not be possible without the support of our sponsors. And so it's my pleasure and privilege to introduce Microsoft's Senior Director of Global Diversity and Inclusion, Diana Navas-Rosset. Please welcome Diana to the stage.
Thank you, Lizette, and good afternoon. Buenas tardes, bienvenidos. It is such an honor to be here welcoming you on behalf of Microsoft. Our mission to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more is what drives our commitment to expanding opportunities today so that we can create the world that we want for tomorrow. It is what drives our inclusion strategy and what holds us steady on our commitment to creating a more equitable world. That commitment to empowering, it's also what joins us in forces supporting the work that HACER leads on behalf of the Hispanic and Latinx community. As a longstanding partner of HACER, Microsoft continues to look for opportunities to actively and proactively demonstrate our commitment, because we know that dynamic Latinx leaders and cutting-edge technology are a powerful combination. In my current role, leading diversity and inclusion strategies for Microsoft, I have the distinct privilege of running and championing initiatives to create a more diverse and inclusive workplace. And I get to bring with me the unique perspective and experience of someone who understands the many strengths that we have as Latino professionals, as well as the challenges that we face in corporate America. I'm standing in front of you not just as a representative of Microsoft, but as a fellow Latina professional who shares your dreams, your aspirations, and our wish for a better future. I've been attending HACER programs for over 10 years. In 2015, I had the great opportunity of joining the Young Hispanic Corporate Achiever Program, an experience that helped shape the leader that I am today. And so I've seen firsthand the impact that this organization has had in many lives and careers of people that I consider my friends and family. And so I want to take a moment to commend HACER for their unwavering dedication to the Hispanic and Latinx community, and for their commitment to continue to empower us to come together, to learn from each other, to celebrate each other, and to share our stories. We gather here not only to build our professional skills, but also to forge meaningful connections. We gather here to share insights and to strengthen as a community. Your presence here is not just about your personal development or your professional development. We know that. You're committed to excellence. But it should also be a commitment to strengthening our community. So I want to close with an invitation to be present, to intentionally connect with each other and learn from each other, so that we can actively and intentionally create better opportunities for generations to come. Again, on behalf of Microsoft, bienvenidos.
Thank you, Diana, and thank you, Microsoft, for your sponsorship of this year's executive programs. So now we're going to switch topics and talk about something different. We're going to talk about executive mindsets in this first session of the afternoon. And I'm sure you all know that many organizations commit resources to leadership development efforts for their employees. But the research, and of course a session with me wouldn't be complete without talking about research as the Chief Research Officer. The research shows that many organizations rate their leadership development programs as not very effective. Why aren't companies getting more bang for their leadership development buck? Well, it's partly because oftentimes these development efforts overlook a specific attribute that is foundational to how leaders think, learn, and behave, and that's their mindsets. Mindsets are leaders' mental lenses that dictate what information they take in and use to make sense of and navigate the situations they encounter. Mindsets drive what leaders do and why. Today, we're going to explore this concept further, and we're fortunate enough to be joined by 3 executives willing to share their insights with us on the topic of executive mindset and share their experiences on developing their own mindsets to become effective leaders rising through the ranks of corporate America. So joining us today is first, the president of Nationwide Corporate Solutions, a portfolio of businesses that offers a unique and broad range of financial products and solutions, JJ Perez. Please welcome JJ. Our next panelist is the Vice President of Experimentation Platform at Microsoft. She leads a team that delivers key services and programs supporting the AI platform team and serves as the team's diversity and inclusion executive sponsor. Please welcome to the stage, Maria Alvarez. And finally, we have Vice President 3PL Global Supply Chain and Logistics from Target, whose team opens and operates all external supply chains. Please welcome to the stage, Sergio Vilar. So thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I'm excited to be here leading our conversation today on executive mindsets. And I was hoping that perhaps you could start by sharing a little bit about yourselves and your journey in corporate America.
All right, I'll go first.
Yeah.
JJ Perez, my journey, I'll give you the abbreviated version. A heavy emphasis or a heavy influence in my career has been my father. And he grew up as a migrant worker, 3rd generation migrant worker. My grandparents had a 3rd and 6th grade education and believed that education was the way of changing our family opportunities. And so my father was the first in his family to graduate high school. His youth pastor took him and introduced him to the concept of going to college. And then when I was 2 years old, he decided to go to law school at night while working 2 jobs. And I say that because I always wanted to be like my father in the sense that I wanted to go to law school, but I didn't know if I wanted to practice law. Didn't really know how that was going to work out because you spend a lot of money going to law school. But I figured that God would figure out a way to work it out. So my undergrad degree was in computer information systems. My dad said to study whatever you want to study and then work for a couple of years before going to law school. So I worked at a startup software company for 3 years, learned a little bit of a lot of things, went to law school, came out and started at Nationwide in 2009. Since being at Nationwide, I was in the Office of General Counsel, went from there into corporate strategy. From that role, I jumped into operations, had an opportunity to take a developmental role as a chief of staff for one of our executive vice presidents, and moved from that role into a finance role, a couple different finance roles for about 4 years, until I had the role that I have now, which is leading one of our P&Ls.
Great. I'm Maria Alvarez. I am originally from Venezuela. Very similar to JJ's story. I am here because of my mom. When I graduated from high school, I wanted to do psychology. My mom said, hey, there is a new university in our city. They have 2 majors, business and computer science. You are going to study computer science. Okay. I was a good girl and I followed my mom's advice and I really, shaped my life with this. I went and do the undergraduate in information systems in Venezuela. Clearly realized that I needed to learn English. All the books were in English, so I needed to do this. So I decided to do a master's, came to LA, and then went to Cal Poly Pomona to do my master's. I still live in LA for more than 30 years. And then after that, I started in Symantec Corporation as a developer, then pretty quickly went to Hewlett Packard, and my role started growing in R&D development. until I was able to find a job that I didn't know what it was when I joined Yahoo, but it was a chief of staff role. And that role I call an MBA in steroids because it went from being a technical leader going deep, it made me broad in how to manage technology organizations that were very, very large. After that, I went to a company in Spain. I took a leap of faith, moved my entire family, went to Spain to be a CTO of a security company, which was a great privilege for me to do and lead a team in my own native language. And then 12 years ago, I joined Microsoft, similar role that I had at Yahoo, supporting the entire advertising systems at Microsoft, the consumer businesses, and I manage a portfolio of services. And then 3 years ago, I joined the Cloud and AI division, specifically the AI platform. That is the division that partners and creates the tools with ChatGPT. So I said that right now, AI is at the center of the world, and our organization is in the middle of it. And here I am.
Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say it's such an honor and privilege to be here. I feel yesterday that I was sitting where you guys are seated for the first time back in, if I'm not mistaken, 2012 or 2013. And I've been, in one way or another, a part of ASER since then. So super excited to be here. So my name is Sergio Villar. I was born and raised in Lima, Peru. I don't know if there's any Peruvians in here, but I grew up there. My entire family is still there, the same as my wife. Got my bachelor's in Peru as an industrial engineer. And came here, I was just sharing to JJ, came here to get my MBA, thinking that I was going to be here for 2 years and then go back home. Here I am, 22 years later. One thing after the other. I was hired right after the MBA program for a company called Cintas Corporation, and I moved to Indiana for them for 5 years, then moved to Florida for Myers, Florida. My last role with them was regional director and Six Sigma Black Belt. And then transitioned to Target, probably one of the best decisions on my career. And I've been with Target for the last 13 years, multiple roles with them, have moved quite a bit as well with Target. Started as a store director out on the field, senior director, moved to headquarters as a vice president of stores operation, moved to California to run their stores in Southern California, took on a role back into headquarters as an enterprise operations, and now I lead supply chain, basically all the operations on the first mile, which is all the imports, transition of all the imports to come into our distribution centers, as well as our vendors, local vendors, and coming to distribution centers. So once again, super excited to be here, and can't wait for the conversation.
Great. Well, thank you all for those introductions. We're going to jump right in, right? And I think there's no better way to start this conversation than talking about being willing to face challenges, right? So one of the most important elements of a leadership mindset is to not be afraid to face those challenges and to really meet them head on instead. Can you share with us an experience of a time when you were able to proactively acknowledge obstacles or challenges that you were facing and leverage them to become opportunities for growth?
I can start. So I'll share two things. One was a personal obstacle. When I arrived into LA, I was, I had a scholarship to do my master's. I was good in math, but not in English. So pretty soon I realized that my level of English was pretty bad. My kids still make fun of me today. And then I lost it. I actually passed the TOEFL to go into undergraduate, but not graduate degree. So I lost it all. And rather than go back to Venezuela, I basically offered the ESL program to, in face of that adversity, I said, I don't have anything to lose. I know how to code, so I offered them to rebuild their entire system for tracking student scores. in exchange for free tuition. To my surprise, they accepted my offer. So I went through that year learning English, developing my skills, and then just grit, so, on that. The second one was 3 years ago in Microsoft. We had a reorg, and my team was reorged. And it was pretty devastating for me. They left part of the team, but the other part went to another leader. So I was just disappointed. I was, how, can I do this? Maybe I should leave and all this stuff. But rather than that, I looked into opportunities within Microsoft, and I went to the AI team and, look at opportunities there. And today I'm a part of that organization. 3 years later, I run the platform that powers A/B testing for all the features that Microsoft does across all the divisions: Xbox, Office, Azure, Bing, Ads. So if I, would have taken that emotion and go and reacted from that, I would have had this opportunity today. So.
I love how you talked about that, Maria, and I love, if everybody here was listening to it, it's a mindset that she had when she was in undergraduate, and it's a mindset that she carried all the way to get to where she is today, and it's the mindset that will take her into her next roles of growing responsibility, right? And I think the other thing that I like about it is it also ties in with what Alamar Latour was talking about at lunch.
Yes.
This kind of learning mindset, finding a way. One of my favorite books is called The Obstacle is the Way. And the way I would describe it, it's based on a quote by Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor. The way I would describe it is, if you've ever watched water flow, if you stick an obstacle in front of water when it's flowing, what does it do? Yeah, it doesn't stop, right? It doesn't stop and say, well, I lost my scholarship money, and so I guess I'm going back to Venezuela, right? No, right. It says, this is what I want. I'm going to find a way around it. I'm going to go over it. I'm going to go around it, or I'm going to just carve right through this rock over the course of 2,000 years, right? And so that I didn't realize, one of my stories too is from at the startup software company I worked at very early in my career. The software was database integration software. This is about 2003. We could take multiple separate disparate databases, but the idea was take databases that were separate. We could map the relationships, and we could create a virtual layer you could report on. The thing was, you had to have connections between the two databases. And a lot of databases at the time were old legacy systems that we hear about still today. And the only company that was making connections for those was IBM. And you had to get a certification, you had to read a manual. And so we were doing some work. We worked really hard to get a pilot with the Office of Budget and Management in the state of Ohio. And at this point, we were burning cash. We didn't have any clients. And so this was really important that we could show some success. And we got IBM to pro bono send one of their consultants down, and he was working on getting the connection set up. After about a day and a half, 2 days, which it was only supposed to take a few hours, he couldn't get it to work. And I remember he left the user's manual, this 80-page document. He left it sitting there. And I was like, I'm just going to see if I can figure this thing out, because I don't think I have much choice. And I still think it was a miracle, but I was able to figure it out overnight. And by the time he came the next morning, I was like, I got it working. And I still, to this day, I'm like, I don't know how that happened, but it was like, well, if he's not going to figure it out, I'm going to see what I can do. And that was probably the first time where I was like, I'd rather be told I can't do something by trying it than me just saying, well, it's not possible, so I'm just not going to try it at all.
One thing that I wanted to add, obviously I have faced many obstacles and challenges throughout my personal and professional career, but you remind me about how much an obstacle could become English being your second language, right?
Yes.
And I often talk about these inside a Target when I meet with other Hispanic leaders, because it could become a lot in our head, but it could become also a perceived obstacle for others as well. So I have learned throughout my career to try to get comfortable about it. English is forever going to be my second language. I constantly try to get better at it, but I will never be as fluent as somebody that was born here, right? And that obstacle and facing that, of course, I have talked to many people that has guided me. And at one point in my life, actually, I thought about going to an accent reduction class. And believe it, there exists. you can go to college to get an accent reduction. And if it wouldn't be for at that time, and I was early in my career here in the States, the leader that I had had told me basically, and I quote him, are you dumb? Like, why are you thinking about that? And make me feel comfortable in my own skin, and continue this and basically explaining that provides a diversity of a different way of thinking, a different way of approaching, and the way that I process and thought has been different since I started. It is part of the growth mindset, right? So if any of you guys face the same challenge, just get comfortable with your own skin. Know that yes, you probably have an accent, and that's a fact. But guess what? Other people know that. Other people hear you, and they will give you grace. And I still remember what somebody told me once, and it was recently. And if you screw it, so be it. You know, just keep doing it. Just laugh about it and grow about it, learn about it, ask, and just move on.
So thank you all for sharing that. And I think one of the things that sort of you all have in common in talking about those challenges and how you face them is like never really losing sight of what that end goal was. And I think as individuals, it's easy for us to be like, oh, well, I know where I'm trying to go. I know this barrier has presented itself, and I'm going to figure out a way to get past that. It's often not as easy to do the same thing for our team, right? And what happens when we're leading teams is that oftentimes morale suffers, right? When you're working on some big project, you hit a challenge, all of a sudden your team's morale suffers. So can you share any insights with us on perhaps how you've helped your teams navigate?
Yeah, I'll go first. You went first last time.
Yeah.
One, I found it to be hugely helpful. I had feedback at Nationwide, and I'm sure at other companies, you get kind of like a psychological assessment as you move through your career. You get feedback on things you could work on, and I've always been very even keel. I mean, I think some of that is, you know, working at a startup software company where stuff is just flying everywhere, and everybody's wearing multiple hats. You learn to stay calm in the fray. And I never realized that could be a liability. And one of the things that one of these psychologists / executive coaches said is, you know, at times your team is going to be really worried or concerned about what's going on, what's happening, how they're going to get through it. And if you're just sitting there calm as a Hindu cow, they may think you're out of touch, right? Like you don't actually appreciate and understand all of the things that they're dealing with. And so for me, part of the learning was, one, I don't need to mirror their anxiety, but I do need to mirror some level of appreciation for what they're feeling. And in some ways, I can reflect that through saying, if I were sitting in your shoes, empathy, right? If I were sitting in your shoes right now, here's what I'd be thinking, and here's what would be concerning to me. And I'm guessing you're feeling something like that right now. Can you tell me what's going on? And letting them get that out there. The other thing I would say is something that has stuck with me since the startup software company. I remember we were getting into this big project. We had 12 people at the entire company, and I would have estimated we'd need 30 to be able to tackle this project. And the CEO's name was James Pat, and I said, James, I don't really see any way that we're going to be able to get this done. I mean, it's just like math. And he goes, we're going to get this done the same way you'd eat an elephant, one bite at a time. And that has stuck with me too. Like, I think a lot of times morale suffers because people are seeing it as something that is insurmountable versus something that can be broken down and tackled in pieces and parts. And over a period of time with the right teamwork, you can get it done. So those are the two reflections I'd put out there.
Good. Yeah, I relate to that. I would say the most important part is validating how people feel. What I realized early in my career, that the employees were afraid of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, what they don't know. And then as an executive, you know, and then in some cases, you cannot say. So it's just validating and providing transparency as much as you can. What you feel is right, I get you. You know, not know that it's going to be okay because they feel invalidated. So what I have done is share with the team as much as I can, you know, very transparently what has happened. In some cases, we were sunsetting a product in Hewlett Packard, and they told us, you have 18 months, and you will sunset that product, and after that, all of you will be without a job. And then you can find jobs in Hewlett Packard. That was the best thing that we can do for the employees because they stay committed to that process in that hard time. Most recently with my team and some of the layoffs that we've seen, my team was not productive. They were very anxious. I couldn't say many things, but I acknowledged and I told them, this is what is happening, this is what I can tell you. So I think they appreciated that. Many of them were appreciative. So I think, sometimes we don't say anything when we should say something, or at least validate what they're feeling.
I like that FUD, right? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? And I think when we're able to sort of relieve some of that for our team members and the folks that are working with us, I think it goes a long way to helping people deal with those obstacles, deal with those challenges, and not get down about it, right? And I think that's the key, and certainly that's what separates executives from individual contributors, right? They have that ability to see that big picture.
One thing to add there, because you're absolutely right, but one mistake I've seen leaders to do in those circumstances is they get too much on the trenches with the individual. In that, in the long run, actually impacts the morale of the individuals. So the biggest advice, and I'll keep it short, is obviously be there, provide the direction, provide the guardrails, but then get out of the way. Get out of the way, because you will be amazed how much your team, your subordinates, your peers can actually do if you let them be. And you let them do the job. Obviously, after that follow-up, right, go there, make sure they do the check-ins, but get out of the way. As a leader, that is probably one of the most powerful things that you could do for your team.
So let's switch gears a little bit and we'll talk a little bit about decision-making and being decisive, right, in a leadership role. Sometimes when you are making decisions, you have to manage contradiction, you have to oftentimes manage competing pressures. Can you share with us a little bit, an example perhaps of a situation when you had conflicting priorities or competing pressures and how you navigated those situations to come up with a resolution?
I can kick it off. It just brings a fairly recent example. I actually was asked to take into an assignment which was a turnaround assignment, and when I got there, there were a lot of things that actually needed to adjust, needed to change, and quite honestly, it was overwhelming at first. It was overwhelming because the thing is, where do you start, right? That was the question I was asking. Where do you start when there's no 1, 2, or 3 things, but there are multiple things that you need to be addressing, and at the same time, the business keeps going, right? And there are some priorities that come from the top down that you need to be executing. But and I remember having this conversation with a peer, and actually I was in the West Coast, he was in the East Coast, and he told me something obvious, right? Prioritize, but not only prioritize, but it's just for your mental sanity. Prioritize even the priorities, and start with the basics, right? If you're on a turnaround situation, a crisis situation, or whatever, focus. And some of my team members are in here probably heard these multiple times. Focus on the foundation, right? And if you focus on the foundation, you'll be able to build something after that. And try to isolate yourself from the noise, because there will be noise. There will be noise. There will be noise. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with your team. Be clear with them about this is the things that we're going to go after, and stay consistent there. Because if you don't remove all the noise to your team is going to be trying to figure it out where to go. If you are not consistent on those 2 or 3 priorities that you want to do, of all the priorities and competing priorities that happen, they will be easily jump from one another, and they will never deliver on that foundation that you need to deliver.
I want to ask a follow-up question to that, Sergio. So you said prioritize the priorities, right? What's on your mental checklist? How do you do that?
Oh, that's a tough one, because you need to do that for your own mental sanity, right? And you need to do that every single time, in times of crisis or just in a normal run state. But I always go down to three things. The first one, to me, is the team. How this impacts the team. And by that, I mean they're safe. Or is it safe? Is it secure for them? How are they going to be impacted? Their morale, their engagement. Two, the processes, right? How this impact the processes? What do we need to go after? And three, and sometimes we as leaders forget about this one, is yourself. How does this impact yourself? Are you going to be able to be there through the whole process with your team mentally as well as physically, or is it going to drain you that you are not going to show up the best self for your team? So team, how does it impact your team, how does it impact the process, and how does it impact yourself?
I like that. I think too, sometimes we sort of get caught up in how quickly things are happening around us, right? That we lose sight of those three things, right? And we forget to prioritize them. Thinking about sometimes how quickly we have to make decisions and thinking about how quickly our businesses change, right? What information or insight would you share with our audience today that helps them sort of navigate that evolving nature of business at that quick pace? And how do you balance, sort of being agile and flexible with what's happening in the marketplace around you, and ensuring that you're providing stability for your team, and that decision making doesn't also become erratic because of the pace of what's happening around you?
Yeah, I can add to that. So I'm actually living it. So what happens is, so then we have, conflicting, as you said, priorities. So you have the steady state. In our case, we have a platform. We develop features depending on what our customers are asking. And the differences are very different from Bing, from Azure, from Office, from Xbox. So how you support that and adjust just like that in a few months to go to a ChatGPT launch that Bing has to do in a very fast manner. And that required that we had to adapt very quickly. So the team is asking, and so my point to the team was, I cannot give you that answer. We have to figure it out and do it all. Meaning they said, well, do we drop this and then go there? So, and innovate there on how we do experimentation for large language models, or, and then so we say not to these features and things like that. And I said, we have to be able to move in both sides of the spectrum, in the steady state, and what can we do, and then deliver, and then what can we drop, and take advantage of that. And actually, to your point of, I actually changed I kept my priorities, but I said, I'm gonna add a new priority. I was create a different agile method, and I said we're going to inject this special group that would attend Bing in this emergency and this crisis of doing quickly stuff that we were not prepared for. So that has actually helped. So it's just as leaders, I think it's important for us to live in adapted, what we call in Microsoft adaptive leadership. That concept of you have to adapt to what you are facing in the moment.
Yeah, I think it's a great answer. I think makes me wish I worked in AI at Microsoft. It sounds so cool. Sounds like such a fun challenge. When you talk about the ambiguity, the environment changing quickly, one of the things that came to mind for me was what Sergio said earlier, that which decisions do you need to make? Get out of the way of the team. And so I think there's a very heavy element of, particularly the higher you go, which decisions, which projects, which meetings, what are you involving yourself in? Because you'll slow them down, right? It's the same point. You will slow the team down. If the team feels empowered to make it, then you are supporting it, right? So you need to train the team on what your expectations are, what the guardrails are, how you want them to work through the problem, and then let them work through the problem. And if things go well, then you give credit to the team, and if things go badly, then you step in front of them and try to remediate as much of it as you can, but you take responsibility for it. To me, I think that has been hugely helpful in dealing with because everybody's tackling different problems, which is a lot of what I heard in your answer as well. And then the other thing I would say that I've heard from everybody up here, and I heard over lunch, is just having this always-on learning attitude, Because if you wait until something hits you sideways if you wait until ChatGPT comes out to learn anything about AI, then you're probably a little bit late to the game, right? So you always need to be educating yourself. The higher you go, the more I believe at least, you need to be educating yourself a little bit about everything, because you never know what's going to come up or what's going to impact your team. And you need to be at least somewhat read in to know, where do I even start? Like, if I'm going to focus on the foundation, what seems like the likely foundation as I prioritize these things?
How do you prioritize yourself though, right? I mean, because obviously y'all are very busy. You have a lot of work going on, right? And, you know, I hear the point about, you know, staying on top of things and sort of this idea of lifelong learning. But sometimes it's really difficult to sort of figure out how to incorporate that into what we're doing on a daily basis. So how do you do it? What's your one strategy, your secret?
The thing I always come back to is, because it's visual and it's a matter of survival, you put your oxygen mask on before you put the mask on the person next to you. You know, if I'm not taking care of myself, I'm not gonna show up well for my team. I'm not gonna show up well for my family. So sometimes my wife says it in a way that I feel like she's kind of, I guess, speaking ill or denigrating me. She's like, "You're so good at your self-care." Like you make sure you get.
That was feedback. That was feedback.
Yeah. You make sure you're getting your workouts in, don't you? And I'm like, a lot of it is I'm not the same person when I don't, right? Like I don't need. It gets a lot of the frustration out, so I can actually focus on showing up the best I can show up. And I don't want to be that person. You know, the higher you go, the more stressful it gets, the bigger the stakes get, and I don't believe that beyond a certain, to some level, the stress can help you perform. But beyond that level, it can become cancerous, in my opinion. So I think it's a great question, because anybody who's busy does need to focus on, how am I taking care of myself to show up the best I can.
Yeah, I couldn't agree, and it seems that my wife and your wife might be talking, because I get the same thing. I'm a very, very routine guy, and obviously work is work, right? But I'm like a very Hispanic individual growing. I like my siestas, and I take even a 10-minute or 20-minute every afternoon, and I'll do it. That really picks me up. That's when my wife gives me the feedback. You do a lot of, but also, like, I go to the gym at the same time, right, in the afternoon, and I don't deviate from it, because that's what gives me that self-care. So that level of routine, if you don't have one, try to find one, because the more that you're gonna climb the ladder, if you don't find those level of routines or time for yourself, another thing that I do, and my admin helped me tremendously, on my calendar there's pockets of just do nothing, right? But it's like office time or just read email. But if I don't plan for those things throughout the day, then your calendar will get populated for stuff to do. And there will always stuff to do. Right? So unless you take care of yourself and you build some level of routine, whatever works for you, nobody else, believe me, nobody else will do it for you.
I actually would like to add, many years ago, I had a great training, and it was called the corporate athlete. And, you know, in the past, people were only focused on the performance, the cognitive of leaders, the cognitive performance. And that actually went for what you guys have talked about, for the physical aspect, but then, you know, there are other aspects. Is the physical, is the emotional, is the mental, is the cognitive, and the spiritual. And I really like that, because all of those are important. So yes, we have rituals, you know, we block calendars, we do exercise, we sleep well. In my case, I have to have my sleep. But the spiritual part is also very important, and it takes different form and shapes for people. Some meditate, some pray, some read, some breathe, a combination of. And then for me personally, it is the prayer. It is getting ready. I get very anxious. So how I prepare for that, you know, the decision, you know, a difficult meeting, a different conversation, a panel like this. So it's just beyond the physical, but I think it's important, the other aspects. And if you had a fight with your kid the night before, it's not gonna help either. You are worried about your family and some of the emotional aspects. So be able to identify those and address them, regulate them, and find place on how you're gonna manage that.
If you allow me to say one more thing. we go to the gym to work our muscles or to work our heart, it's as equally important to work our minds and to take care of our minds. So don't forget that. So give yourself grace and give yourself permission to do that and take those times.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing that. I personally have the strategy that Sergio mentioned, which is I block my calendar. So if I know I need time to do this in the middle of the day, like whether that's working out or just taking a break from sitting, in front of the screen and taking a look at what's happening in the news or reading, a research person, so I read a lot of stuff. So even if it's just taking 5-10 minutes to set aside some time to read the new journal that arrived in my office, like I block time on my calendar to do it, because if I don't, then my day is just going to get sucked up in all kinds of other things, and I won't have time to do that. So I think it's really important to practice self-care, whatever that looks like for you.
Can I add a little bit to that? I would just add that there's this book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There, right? About the things that make you a successful individual contributor will not make you a successful people leader. And I bring that out because at first, like I'm recollecting when I first started blocking my calendar like that, I felt bad.
Yep.
Like I really felt bad. Like mine is 3 to 5. Like I need to feel like I'm caught up on things and I'm ready for the next day at the end of the day before I go home. And I remember like I was like, this is kind of like me cheating. Like I'm not actually working during this time, right? Even though I'm checking email. And even more so nowadays, like my team may need something in an emergency. It's like, all right, I got 2 hours at the end of the day, you could get 30 minutes, But I call that out because depending on where you are in your career here, if you're not doing that, you may feel like part of the value you provide the company is being in meetings all day. I would tell you that you being able to think strategically is probably even more valuable than you being in meetings all day. So it is a muscle that you have to get used to, so start.
Yeah, highly recommend the book that JJ just mentioned. I've read it and met the author. It's really important, right? You have to be able to give yourself these strategies to make sure that you're able to advance your career. Because again, like he just said, if you're not able to really think strategically for your company, yes, your individual contributions can get you to a certain point, but they won't get you to that next level. And that's where that strategic piece comes into play. So we've got a couple more questions here that we're going to talk about, but there will be time for Q&A in just a few minutes. And so if you have questions for these wonderful leaders that have joined us today, please, sort of get ready. We're going to have some folks running mics. So, start thinking about what you might want to ask so that we can get your questions answered. So I want to talk about one more thing related to decision making, and it has to do with, promoting diversity of thought, right? And ensuring that, when you're in those situations where you need to make those difficult decisions, how do you ensure that, that decision making process is inclusive of all different perspectives? What's a strategy or tip there you could share?
I have to confess that I've grown into that particular thing throughout my career. At first, and probably it's something common that happens in leaders, is you just believe that you always have to have the answers to everything, and you have to go there knowing the topic, you give the direction, and then, okay, let's go and execute. But I have learned, again, throughout my career, that when you use that approach, and again, there are moments that you still have to use that, right? If it's a crisis and you have to go and execute something, obviously go and do that. But I have learned that a lot of times when you use that approach often, you are preventing your team to speak up or to share a different opinion, a different thought, or a different idea. So now, personally, try to be the last person to speak. I observe the team who is sitting in the room, because you always have the extroverts that dominate the conversation, right? They come and start talking the whole time, and those when you have to, okay, now slow down, let the other ones speak, right? And then you have the introverts that they need to be more invited. And then if you're introverts like me, there are Hispanic, which normally there's a different level because we are very respectful of authority, respectful of seniority. These just come with the values that we are. By the way, there's a great book around that one. It's called World Cultures for Business. So if you never know it actually shows you how to do business with people from different cultures. Anyway, that was a parenthesis there. But if you need to be aware of the audience, right? And perhaps let other people speak. And this is something that my current boss do a really good job, and I have learned that is ask intentionally, right? If you're in the room and then you see somebody is quiet and say, hey, Maria, what do you think about this, right? It might be uncomfortable for her if she's an introvert, or if she doesn't have an opinion, it is okay. You say, you know what, no, I'm good. Perfect. But at least you're inviting this individual to express their opinion, because in an environment that we are right now, sometimes that person might feel like he's overwhelmed or by the extroverts or other people or the topic, and she might feel that her opinion is not valued. So be very intentional about those moments. And as leader, you need to open that space to generate a diversity of ideas, diversity of thoughts. Because if you are not, or that's not naturally being created, you have to play that facilitator role.
Yeah, I want to add to that. I think that was great. One of the things that I try to do is we have different people coming from different disciplines, and then so inviting that perspective in. People tend in engineering, where I come from, immediately, we have a problem. Okay, let's solve into solving the problem. And I say, well, let's stay back. Let's ask the questions, and provide first data. What are the data coming from the different disciplines? What are the insights that we have? What is the impact of this decision? Playing devil's advocate as well. So people start listening the different perspective. And in some cases, somebody that is, similar to what Almar said, hey, sometimes you want somebody that is saying, what are you doing? Giving you that shake up. So I think that, bringing that and then asking thoughtful questions. So the team gets like, okay, because some already have the answer, and then they haven't considered other perspective or the quiet person or that. So I think that is a good
You say
practice.
something that I want to emphasize. Playing devil's advocate, that's huge, right? Generate healthy conflict on the conversation. If you don't generate healthy conflict, you're always going to get the same answer. And the only way for you to generate that healthy conflict is by playing devil's advocate.
I have a quick.
Yeah.
Agreed with everything said. I love it. The thing I would add, because I like that you guys attacked it from different ways. One, we've talked about a lot here in different forums, building diverse teams, right? If your team that takes time and deliberateness. If your team is not, if you don't have the perspectives, even the backgrounds, not only the ethnicity, but the background, where you're from in the country, cultivate a diverse network. And so I think it's disciplines, but it could be industries, it could be anything. One of the things that's been hugely helpful to me, I didn't realize it would be this helpful when I started my career. I made kind of like a goal for myself that I wanted to have 3 lunches or coffees with different people every week. And so I've been doing that for 14 years now, and I just have so many people that I can reach out to and say, hey, I know you had some experience here. Can I get your perspective on this? And sometimes, if it's confidential, it has to be a hypothetical. But it helps because I can get perspectives that I wouldn't be able to staff on my team.
Yeah.
Which is good. I like that idea too. So I want to see, before I go into another question, because of course I have more, but are there questions from the audience? There's one up here, and I think I see one over there as well. We're going to go here first, yeah.
Hi, my name is Jessica Robledo Garcia. I'm the North America Demand and Supply Senior Director for Procter & Gamble. And my question for all the panelists is, that book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, what are some of the things you had to leave here to get there?
I mean, the biggest thing for me was delegating. And I had, we both mentioned a chief of staff role. I had my first role leading people, and I was doing some delegating because I knew I was supposed to delegate as a people leader, but it wasn't until I had the chief of staff role and I saw a senior leader, an EVP. I tell folks, like, he was almost like a short order cook. Nothing stayed in his hands very long. It was constantly being doled out. He led. That's what his job was to lead, he was never in a PowerPoint. I don't even think he opened his computer most days. It was all on his phone, right? Delegating was one of the biggest things for me there. Not stop doing and start leading people doing it.
I double down on that answer. You stole it from me the first.
I saw it in your eyes, and so I jumped on it.
One thing that I learned from an executive EVP that I actually was the chief of staff for, he said to the, every time that he would meet with the team, people would want to showcase things to him and what they were working on, until one day he stopped the meeting and he said, okay, he grew to be a big EVP, and he rose to the ranks, and he said, hold on, why are we here? Are you educating me? Are you informing me? Are you want me to have a position or make a call? You cannot have this meeting and this, my time is precious. And I was like, wow, that was important. So he, we all knew him for many years, but he was making a point to everybody there that he needed to move to the next level and say, you inform me on what you want with this on my time. So I thought that was a great insight. And today, that's what I tell my team. Okay, what do you want me to do? Okay, so if you want me to just listen to you and rally, yes. But then they go in circles, and then just pushing them to be very clear on what the outcomes are from certain meetings.
Yeah, those are all great answers, and I totally agree. I will add one thing, less tactical though, but you guys need to find how to reinvent yourself every single, let's call it year, every single year. And if you don't look for ways to reinvent yourself, you're going to live in the past. If this year you accomplish X, Y, and Z, there are some leaders that actually 5 years from now, they're still going to be living on, I accomplished X, Y, and Z. Yeah, but that was 5 years ago. What are you doing now? How are you reinventing yourself? Are you moving yourself along with the new years? Pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, right? Some people work differently before, some people is working differently now, just to leave an example. So if you don't reinvent yourself and you always live on the past of what brought you here will keep you there, you're gonna be a status quo forever. And guess what? At one point, other people is gonna come, is gonna climbing, and when you were here at one moment, now you're gonna be at the bottom in another moment. So look for those opportunities, how you reinvent yourself, how you look for doing different things. And the best tip that I can give you is listen and ask a lot of questions. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And as a leader, you need to utilize that power more than before. Listen twice as much as you speak.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Luis Luciano. I'm a program manager at Microsoft. I wanted to understand, as you go through the ranks, you have more responsibility, more stress, and things like that. So I wanted to take it to the topic of prioritization. When thinking about ruthless prioritization, when you think and you balance it with this idea of strategic leadership or guidance, but also at the same time the need for or bias for action. What are some of the key things as leaders that you see in the people that work for you when you balance these things to be able to feel the needs for the customer or the needs for the company? So strategic guidance, bias for action, and ruthless prioritization.
One thing that just come to mind is your team will react accordingly on how you're showing up. So if you're showing up all nervous, all excited, all like you want to drive, your team is going to be exactly responding on the way they're showing up. So the first thing to come to mind is be aware of how you're showing up for your team on times of crisis, and because your team will see you as the example, right? Often hear the 3 C's, right? Cool, calm, and collected. When in times of crisis, your team needs to see you cool, calm, and collected, right? And that's the best environment to create a level of prioritization, to create a clear direction in what you're going to be doing. And obviously, there's probably going to be less and more action, less of thinking, more action when a crisis time, but it all comes on how you show up.
Something that, The strategy question, how do you prioritize and align to strategy? That's a huge question. I will say if the pillars that you are using in your strategy are crafted well, they are malleable, right? Like your AI strategy doesn't all get thrown out because ChatGPT becomes the next coolest thing, right? It's how does this fit into the strategy that we've already set in a way that's authentic to us. The other thing I'd throw out there that is very tactical, but it was hugely helpful to me because more often when you're leading leaders who are setting the strategy for their businesses, like I lead a team of 4 separate businesses, each one has a P&L leader to it, right? And so I try to be very cognizant of not doing their jobs, doing my job, which I view as supporting them, challenging them, and complementing their strengths. Those 3 things. A lot of my prioritization is how do I deploy my time within those 3 things to maximize what they're able to accomplish with their teams. Not to do their jobs. That may be, finding opportunity to argue for investment, bigger investment from the company. That may be going out and building relationships that are going to lead to opportunities for the businesses that I lead. What I have found very helpful there, it's very simple, is the urgent and important 2 by 2. So if you haven't looked at that before, it's super simple. It was probably a year ago my executive coach gave it to me. I think in a lot of ways I was kind of intuitively prioritizing my time, but that helped me a lot in how I prioritize my time and how I communicate to my team why I'm focused on one thing versus another.
Right.
I would like to add a little bit, total different approach from what you have answered. I will take it more if I were you. So if you're trying to influence your leadership to really prioritize, because they're asking you to do too many things and you have a strategy and the strategy is changing, the big thing that I coach my teams is look for the data, provide insights, give me the options and the trade-offs. So then we can make a call pretty easily. And then always check how is the competitor doing or other teams doing. So that allows you to show up with, and in some cases, with intentionality, with a little bit of courage, because you may be saying that doesn't make sense. The data doesn't show that.
It helps you remove the emotion.
Exactly right.
When you use the framework to help your problem solve, it helps you remove the emotion.
Absolutely.
I agree 100% with that.
So we have time for one more quick question with quick responses. Ready? This is going to be our rapid fire.
Carlos Pardo, Chief Learning Officer for LATAM at Microsoft. One quick comment and then to the question. So throughout the day, we've heard a lot, always learning. It's actually music to my ears. It's in my signature, in my emails. We block time for it. So similar how you block time to focus on work, health, mental, we actually at Microsoft block a full day every month for learning. My question to the panel is, what have you learned in the last couple of weeks?
That's a perfect rapid fire question. Thank you.
There's a book called, somebody recommended this to me last week, but I've been focused on it, Living Life Backward. It's a faith-based book, so I'll put that out there. But I think there's a lot too, like I've in my career, when I've made decisions, I've tried to do it with the perspective of no regrets. Like at the end of my career, if I took the chance on this and I failed, would I have regretted never having taken the chance on it? And it's helped me pursue things that I just wouldn't have pursued. If I would have just been looking at things forward, I'd been like, I didn't really want to take that chance because I'm scared of what could happen. But looking at it in hindsight at the end of my career, saying, I took the chance, it didn't go well, but having had the same information again, I would have done it again.
I have been learning about how we do experimentation with large models and the metrics needed for us to evaluate that for our customers.
And I'll keep it super personal. I learn every single week. I have 2 older kids and I have a younger kid, and I continue to learn to be a better husband, continue to be a better father for my 3 kids, continue to be the best friend I can be for my friends and the most loyal. And I am a true believer that if you have all those 3 components, that will translate into anything you do in life, in your career, or anything. So your kids are, if you don't have kids, when you have kids, they're gonna be your biggest feedback partners, and they're gonna tell you like it is. They're gonna tell you like it is, and that's not discounting your wife, like we mentioned earlier, right? That one is for granted. But your kids become your number 1 feedback partner, so just listen to what they tell you And when you lose your cool, when you lose your patience, and they'll tell you, my dad, like, that's a checkpoint for you.
So thank you all for sharing that, and thank you for sharing your time with us today. We know you're all busy, but you've made time to be here and share your knowledge with our audience. So hopefully you all have walked away from this conversation with lots of great examples on how to develop your own executive mindsets to help you advance your career. Let's applaud our panel. And applaud ourselves for our investment in our own leadership development. We are going to continue our discussion this afternoon on being a Hispanic leader in the C-suite with the next panel, Navigating the Realities of Executive Culture, in a few moments. But we are going to now go to a cafecito break and come back to hear the next panel discuss equipping yourself to transition to the C-suite, learning to navigate politics and strategies for showing up when you're the only one in the room. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again to our moderator and panelists. We will